be in Isaiah 63, verses from 7 to, I believe, to 14. Yes, I'm right. Something. Just give me a second. I need my magic markers. So, first Sunday after.
You want that table out of your way?
No.
In front of the board?
No, I'm fine.
Don't pull the chairs up. So. Then you don't have to extend your arms.
Isaiah 63, 7 to 14. Okay. Yes. 63. Yes. So we are in the last, 63, 7 to 14. So we are in the last part of Isaiah. And if you read carefully, I mean, it's kind of like a long book to read, not the longest one. I mean, Jeremiah actually, with number of chapters, it doesn't look like that, but technically the scroll for Jeremiah, the amount of words and so on and so forth, Jeremiah is the longest guy. So, but still, 66 chapters, how you can have it in your mind altogether. And if you read it carefully, it's actually pretty well structurized. You know, we have first 12 chapters as kind of like an introduction. We have a historical piece in the middle, you know, with all the prophecies in the beginning, and at the second part, there are chapters 36 to 39 with the history of King Hezekiah and all of that, and the siege of Jerusalem, and great story about that. But then, whatever challenges we had in the very beginning, we kind of coming to the moment of how we resolve those challenges. So starting with chapter 60 or 61 to 66, that's where we are. That's the last block. Everything will be picked up. All the loose ends will be picked up, you know, and everything will come to basically almost Hollywoodic, you know, happy ending. And that's great. I mean, it's seriously great. We need to know that basically Bible is written in the ancient sense of comedy book. If you read comedies up to Shakespeare, the comedy is not necessarily stand-up comedies like, I don't know, The Big Bang Theory or whatever things you watch on TV. The comedy is not necessarily lots of laughter. The comedy in the ancient sense is lots of joy. And what brings more joy than a happy marriage feast at the very end of a story? So that's why you have those narratives build up one after another. And we have a marriage feast at the very, very end of the biblical story. Okay, but even some books in the Bible do have this happy ending clue. For example, one of them would be the very first one, Genesis. Okay, we go through creation, there is a fall, there is a serious problem, then there are even more problems, so we need to solve them with flood, then there are patriarchs, and sometimes their life is decent, sometimes it's not so decent. You know, it's not really decent when your kids sell one of your kids into slavery. And it's really bad. But how book ends? The book ends as one of those guys, the guy who was sold into slavery, ended up as a prime minister of the main ruling force over the globe at those days. Okay? So think about the, you know, sorry, I know it would sound too egoistic to say it, but since I believe the United States is a ruling force in the world right now, so it's to be a vice president of the United States. Okay? And that's the end of the book. So therefore, through him, he can influence the whole world. He not only sells them bread, okay? Yeah, he gives them food for daily life. But along with that, most likely, he was able to influence them on the spiritual level. Okay? Same type of happy ending kind of thing we have in Isaiah. And this is one of the passages where we recall the story, and then the story tells us how Lord turns toward his children. So let's read it. Before we'll go into the text, a few historical remarks. We don't know exactly when this particular passage was written. in Isaiah we do not have many dated passages. The whole book, if you go into Isaiah 1:1, so if we'll go into Isaiah 1:1, we'll have words something like the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Okay, so roughly, if this is our timeline, okay, let's say this is the cross, this is about 30 AD. And 1445, that's our Exodus. In about 1000 BC, this is all BC. Okay, we have Temple of Solomon built. Okay, and in 586 BC, we have Temple and Jerusalem destroyed. Okay, so right here, somewhere in the middle, from about 750 to 700, roughly, let's say 715. That's where Isaiah tells his prophecies. Okay, so that's where we are prophetically. Now, apart from our text, the thing is why I brought it up, for two reasons. One of them is in the text we will hear names like Moses and things like that. So Moses is about 700 years before. Okay, so we recall the story of Exodus. On the other hand, not in our text precisely, but in the book of Isaiah, for example, one of the famous passages is 7:14. Remember? The virgin will conceive and bear a son, and he will be called Emmanuel, so on and so forth. Okay, so that will be fulfilled in life of Christ. Therefore, that was predicted about 750 years before. Okay? So we just need to know where in the timeline all of this should be placed, just to give you a clue how these guys work and how the minds of those who wrote New Testament work, why they picked up these and these passage as the support of fulfillment of this and this prophecy. Okay, so now with all of this historical introduction, let us go into the text. I will recount the steadfast love of the Lord, the praises of the Lord, according to all that the Lord has granted us, and the great goodness to the house of Israel, that he has granted to them according to his compassion, according to abundance of his steadfast love. Okay? Two important things. First, unfortunately, in English, so does in Russian. There is no, and in many other languages. I don't know, we have a specialist in African languages here, so maybe he can help us. But there is no good translation for the one simple Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is chesed, and usually it is translated as steadfast love. Okay, so like three simple sounds. Chesed, say everybody, chesed. Chesed. Good, okay. And it's translated into English as steadfast love. I mean, it's like a huge term. Okay, what it means is it can be translated as mercy sometimes, as steadfast love, as loving kindness, or as faithfulness. Now think of all of those terms, bring them all together, and that's what it is. So poor interpreters, poor translators, they have to sometimes make a choice and do some kind of shortcuts to bring at least some main idea across. And we have this word twice in the passage. If you see, the passage basically starts with that. I will recount the steadfast love of the Lord and what he did according to, okay, according to what? Abundance of his steadfast love. Okay, so it's like in literature studies or literature science, we have a term inclusio. Okay, when you have a, then a text. Napkin. Thank you. Then some kind of text, and then a prime. Okay, so the same either word or theme or idea repeated in the very beginning and in the very end, and then you have a development of this word. Okay, there is a very interesting thing that in the middle of this passage it's verse 7. So we are in verse 7. We have something what I would say very unexpected and very unusual. Again, we need to know the history of what's going on. For whatever reason, he says that all of this abundant love is given, or the Lord approaches with this love. Who? Who is the one who is a recipient of this steadfast love?
Israel.
More precise is the house of Israel. Okay? Okay? What's the problem? The problem is that there is no Israel for this time. 1,000-year temple. Who built the temple? Solomon, correct. Who was his son? Rehoboam, okay? And that's the guy who, as soon as he ascended into throne, was approached by elders. And elders said, you can read it. First Kings 12. Bless you. So in 1 Kings 12, you can read the story. It's a homework. Okay, so when I will come in 2 weeks, you have to know this chapter by heart. Okay?
Yes.
No communion to those who will not remember it by heart. Just kidding. So chapter 12. To summarize this, instead of flipping pages, I will retell you the story. The story goes like that. So the elders of house of Israel, and which is all 12 tribes. Okay? So we live in the land, looks like that. So Galilean Sea, Dead Sea, Jordan. This is Mediterranean Sea. So roughly here, you have Israel. Okay? But the cool thing is, when Solomon ruled, his influence was stretched to Ethiopia here and to India here. It doesn't mean that it was the whole empire, but he was influential on this territory. Okay? See? The true worship, maybe not in complete sense, but was influential all over this territory. It was a glorious days. Now, with this in mind, I love to repeat this phrase because you need to have some background knowledge. Elders of Israel, 12 tribes, come to Rehoboam and said, we understand your dad, under inspiration of your grandfather, David, built the temple. To build the temple, he had to raise taxes. Okay? Now, your dad passed away, blessed be his name, and the temple is built. Do you mind to lower taxes a little bit? So what did this guy do? He took an advice as a wise guy. The only problem is he took an advice from whom? From the youngsters who used to live with him in the palace. And they said, no. If you're gonna lose them now, they're gonna think you're a weak guy. So you need to be as tough as a nail. So that smart Alex, he came to them and said, you know what? My dad treat you and kind of squeeze you out of you, basically almost everything you had, but you still have something in you. I'm gonna squeeze everything out of you. And what did they say? They said, you know what? Adios, amigo. we're gone. Now think what just happened. With one dumb decision, the guy ruined all of that. Not only that, what happened is 10 tribes formed Israel and 2 tribes formed Judea. Okay, now let us go back again to the very first chapter of Isaiah. It is important to bear it in mind. The thing is, the vision of Isaiah, son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, not Israel, Judah only, and the capital of Judah is Jerusalem. In the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, nothing in his prophetic visions technically concerns Israel. But when he comes to the very end of his book, what he will show is not only a peace treaty, let's put it this way, between people and God, but also a reunion of the whole house of Israel. So he will, in our passage, he will treat them all together. Because the history that he will go for, or he will bring up the memories of the Exodus, concerns not only Judah, not only Benjamites, not only Levites that are still serving in the temple, but everybody. Okay? So that's important. Now, verse 8. For he, apparently Lord, said, surely they are my people, children who will not deal falsely. Okay? Very often we have this shift going back and forth. At least that's what we have in what we used to call Old Testament. Okay? Sometimes we see people of God called children of God, and sometimes they are called either slaves or ministers of God. Okay? And that's what Galatians, our passage for today from Galatians 4, kinda builds up on. Okay, no more slavery relationship with God. It's only family based. Okay? When Paul says, I am a slave, doulos, okay, to Kyria, doulos, slave of God, that's his personal ministry. That's when he points out how seriously he takes the task. But as a congregation, as a community of believers, we are not slaves anymore. We are children of God. Okay? Therefore, we have inheritance. We do not earn it. We get it by grace. Thank you. And that's what this wonderful infant baptism we just had symbolizes. Okay? Or signifies, however you want to say. Okay? So, they are children who will not deal falsely, and he became their savior. Okay, the savior in the Bible, we immediately jump into savior as salvation from sin. Okay? Yes and no. Okay? In the Bible, term savior can also mean what we would usually translate as rescuer. Okay, the one who rescues from trouble. Okay, those first responders.